Hey everybody, it's Josie. Welcome back to Cedar Creek Homestead. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day and that you're enjoying this beautiful weather. We're having beautiful weather here in Oklahoma, but it is really windy outside, and so if you go out to do chores, you're having to practically tie stuff to you to keep it from blowing away, but we'll take it over the cold any day. I don't know about you guys, but here it's kind of wet and still kind of our ground where we're at on our farm, it kind of slopes in and it's not flat. Really anywhere on our property is it really flat, and so it's kind of spongy wet right now, and we'll have to give that time to dry out. And of course we've got a little bit of rain coming in tonight and all day tomorrow, so that's just par for the course here in the springtime in Oklahoma. We sure don't want to complain about the rain because it'll no doubt turn off in the summertime, and we will be begging for rain. So today I thought we would talk about not putting all of our preparations into one basket. Now, when Howie and I lived in Arkansas, we had a little farm. We didn't have all the land that we had here, of course, but we had a little farm, and we had all kinds of animals. We had pigs, and we had ducks and chickens and turkeys and guineas and dogs and rabbits. At that time we didn't have any cows. We had goats, quite a few goats, and so we had a small farm, smaller than this, but we had a big, really good garden. Rocky, Howie would tell you, and it was rocky, but boy, it grew good tomatoes. And we were having fun and running our business and just living life. And one day, our house burned. We were away. I was working on a vacation Bible school for the church, and Howie had to do some things, and we'd met later at my parents' house and had a barbecue. And Howie left out before I did, and Blade and I come in behind him, and the house was burning. And it burned totally down. Total loss. Well, I had been working, this was in August the 2nd, and I had been working that summer putting up food, and I had a well-stocked pantry, and we had all kinds of preparations, not only food, but other things. Had a little house, but it had a basement under it, so we had a lot of things in the basement, and we had food storage, and we were really starting out on our preparations, and we really had the things that, we had been raised to do those kind of things, and so that's what we had continued to do, and we're just living our lives. And then we lost our house. The night of our house fire, the all but one wall of the house burned totally down into the basement and burned up the basement, and there was one wall left. And the next day, it reignited and burnt the rest of the house down, that one remaining wall. When it got to where we could kind of walk around and survey the place, we went out and we were looking around and kind of peering into the basement. Of course, it was a walkout basement, so the basement walls were up where we could walk around it. And there in the rubble of the basement, you could see broken canning jars and all kinds of preparations that we had made that had burned up. And we lost all of our preps. And we had our preparations, our food stores and our other items in two different locations, but we had them in the same place. We had them upstairs, and then we had things in the basement. And of course, all of it was gone. And those were challenging times for us. We, thank goodness we had insurance, and we had good insurance, and we had a place to go. Howie, Arkansas was my home where I grew up, and here in Oklahoma, this is the farm that Howie was raised on, and he said, I want to go home. And so after, quite a few years of us living in Arkansas, living around my home, it was time for us to come home here. And so we did, and we started all over with our preparations. But we had learned a lesson in all of that, and we were preparing, and we were putting things up, and we had began to sense a bit of an urgency, but all was lost. So when we came home, we began to discuss and devise a new way of looking at things, a new way of putting our stores up and our preparations. And we decided that we wanted to have multiple areas of storage. You've seen the videos where I've been in my kitchen canning and prepping and making recipes for you. And behind me is that glass door that has pantry etched on it that Howie gifted to me. That is my everyday pantry where I store things that I need on a daily basis to pull meals together. And I try to keep, so many cans of this and so many cans of that, like my own personal storage space. And when those things go low, then I go to my extended pantry where I have multiple items that I can pull from to replenish my pantry here in the house, and also have the long-term storage. And it is in an area that is the temperature is regulated, and it's just a really nice area that Howie created for us to have. And we've got other areas that we make use of here on the farm, and so we make sure that we don't have everything in one spot. Now, we may have the same items in multiple places, but we don't have it in a location that if something was to happen, heaven forbid the house burn again, or a storm or something happened that the house would be destroyed, not everything would be gone. And that was really a goal that we had. And we would advise others to not have all of your eggs in one basket. Now, some of you say, I don't even have place in my apartment for just the things that I need to keep on hand for emergency. And I understand that. I realize that we're all different and we all have ways of doing things. But if at all possible, if you could think of a way to store some of your items in a different location, that you would still be able to get your hands on it in an emergency. The night that our house burned, going back to that, it was probably, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The fire started late in the afternoon, and by the time the firefighters and everybody was gone for the night, it was probably about 2 or 3 in the morning. And we had the clothes on our backs. No toothbrushes, no toiletries, nothing. So we had to go to Walmart and try to piece together clothing for all of us and shoes, and because the next day was Sunday, we didn't have any church clothes. We were in clothes that we were working. And so, and not working like on a business attire. We had on work clothes that we had been working through the day and had been at my dad's house that evening. So, and we smelled like smoke. So we had to go, and we had to put out a lot of money right out front to just buy out clothes for all the three of us. We had to have personal items and toiletries, and that was a big expense. And had we had items in a different location, that might have saved us a little bit on having to go and frantically pull something off of the shelves to be able to wear and make it through until we could do something more permanent. Here on our farm, we raise cattle. But to be totally honest with you, unless you're a big operation, your cattle's not going to pay all of your bills. So that's another thing that we had to look at, is not putting all of our eggs in one basket. You want to always make sure that your farm is taking care of itself. And so we're looking at different ways for the farm to make money, and I've shared it with you before, adding other animals. We've always tried to keep chickens and guineas and turkeys and ducks, and we've got eggs, and we've got rabbits, and we're wanting to bring pigs back on the farm this year. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. Every decision that we've made in the last year is having to be revisited again because of grain prices and all those things. And so we have to be flexible and we have to be diverse. We have to make sure that we don't sink everything into cattle, because this side of the cattle market, the farm side of the cattle market, you're not going to get wealthy on that. The big profit is on the other side. And I think a lot of people think that farmers that raise cattle are really, really rolling in the dough. And that's just not the case for most of us. Most of us are raising the cattle, making enough to try to pay the bills and pay for the grain and that. And for the enjoyment of raising the cattle. Howie loved it. And I love looking out through here and seeing these mamas. That's what I keep looking at. I've got mamas with little babies out here. And I love looking out through there and seeing them, seeing that new life. And it's another way to make me think of my Howie and the love that he had for this place. But we understood that we had to have multiple ways. And that was one of the things that Howie worked off of the farm, and so we had multiple ways of making a living, making sure that the farm was running the way it should. Now, not having all of your eggs in one basket can cover everything that there is in the homesteading, farming, preparedness lifestyle. You may not live on a homestead at all. You may live in the city, and that is fine as long as you're preparing. But all of us need to remember that there are multiple ways to put our food up. Some of us love to can and to dehydrate. Some people really love just freeze drying. I don't have a freeze dryer. I don't really know a whole lot about it. Kind of interested in it, but for the foreseeable future, that's not on my radar. But I enjoy seeing other people and what they're doing with them. And some people don't have a dehydrator. They don't have canning supplies. They have to rely on the grocery store. And you know what? You have to do what you have to do. We shouldn't beat each other up at all on how we try to preserve food for our families. And but I would say that there are multiple ways to preserve, and we need to consider that as well, and not just rely heavily on one item. Example, don't just rely heavily on your freezer. If something was to happen and the freezer goes out, you're going to have to know what your next step is. If your personal freezer goes out, you need to know who you can call for your food to be stored in their freezers, or you need to be prepared to put your food up some other way. If something happens and a bunch of us lose our electricity for whatever reason, maybe it's a storm, maybe it is one of those EMPs, maybe it's something else that causes the power to go out, then we need to be prepared to put our food up in other ways. And that makes us all question, what are we going to do? We should always think ahead to the next step. Okay, I've got this, now what? And think about the next step. Not in a fearful way. In fact, when you have all of these things kind of thought out and pondered over, that kind of, to me, takes the fear out of it, because you've run that question over in your mind. You've got a game plan. You kind of know what you're going to do, and then you put it into play, and it helps you to be able to not stress out. You don't need any more stress on you. Life is stressful enough for a lot of people, especially right now. And if you've got some plans on what you can do, or you've actually put those plans into action, that's the next step. Get the plan, then put the plan into action. That covers everything. Water. How are you going to get your water? The basin or the faucet may not always turn on. You may not have a way to clean your water. Those are important things that you need to be really thinking about right now. If the water was to turn off, how are you going to keep yourself clean? How are you going to be able to wash your clothes? And most importantly, how are you going to have water to drink and to cook with? Those are vitally important to your health. And so That's one more thing that we need to consider. And again, consider it ahead of time. Consider it before it's an issue, and you won't stress about it. One thing that I like to consider is items when I'm putting them into my pantry. Are there multiple ways to use it? All of us know that we have recipes that are favorite recipes of our families. And we've been trying to build those menus knowing what recipes that we could put into rotation and save on our grocery bill and make sure that we have those items in stock in our pantries. And if you can find an item that has multiple uses, that's a great thing to have. Rice is one of those that has all kinds of recipes that you can use rice for. Your vegetables, your fruits, your other items. You can make homemade baking mixes and homemade puddings and homemade extracts and all kinds of things that if you couldn't get it at the store and you already knew ahead of time how you were going to have it if you couldn't get it at the store and put it into practice, put it into play, then once again, the worry and the fret over that is gone. It's good to have those convenience items just to be able to go into your pantry and pull it off the shelf. But I like to think about those items that they're good, they're tasty, they're quick, and people usually like them. But I like to think, now, my family likes this recipe. What would I do if I didn't have this particular ingredient that I know if I don't put it in there, it's not going to taste the same. It's going to be off. And so what can I do to make something that's going to be close to this, to replace it, to replicate it? You know, there are all kinds of recipes that'll teach you how to make evaporated milk, condensed milk. How can you make buttermilk if you don't have buttermilk? So I wanted to challenge you today that when you are stocking up, to think ahead. Think about not putting all of your supplies, all of your preparations into one basket. Where is somewhere else I can put these things? You don't want everything in the freezer. You don't want everything in one location. You want to try to have multiple areas. Ask yourself about the item that you're going to put in your storage. Is there multiple ways to use it? Now, that's not just with food, but that's with blankets and towels and sheets, and those things can wipe up messes. You can use tea towels. I don't buy, and I know you guys that have been with me long enough know this, I don't buy paper towels. I use tea towels. You can buy bundles of tea towels. You can get cheap. Somehow my house grows tea towels. I have a lot of tea towels. And so as they get stained, you move them to your scrap bag. And then when you've got spills to mess up, you've got something messy and nasty and sticky, get one of those old towels. And if it's too bad, toss it in the trash. But if not, put it in and wash it in the washer, and you got a towel to use over and over again. Find things that have multiple uses. I also use tea towels. I've got I have a set of white tea towels with a red stripe, and I use those for napkins. I keep them rolled up. A lot of people, when they first come, and I tell them that's the napkins, they're kind of worried because they're white, and they don't really want to use them and get them stained up. But I'm just use it, and I'll put it in the wash, and it'll be just fine. Think about the multiple uses for different items that you have. Ask yourself, what can I do to replace this item when it's used up? There may come a time when you use up the item and it's no longer available, but it's a favorite of your family. So ask yourself, is there a way that I can replicate this? Is there a way that I can grow new vegetables and fruits? Is there a way I can get this new spice mix that my family likes? Is there a way that I can replicate this baking mix? Is there a way that we can replenish the clothing items that we have, or patch the ones that we've got because it's our favorite pair of jeans and we just ripped the knee out? Now, for some people, that wouldn't be a problem. They would wear them anyways. But I would say learn to put some patches on some clothing items and stretch your preps just a little bit. The one thing that I hope everyone got from this today is encouragement to continue to make preparations in all areas of your life. Make sure that you have a means to restock and replenish. Make sure that you have backups to your backups and that you don't store all your eggs in one basket. Make sure that you've got multiple uses for your items. It's going to be okay. We just got to keep working. There's not time to slow down. It's not time to sit on the sidelines. We've got a lot of work to do. Spring is here, and it's time to get busy. I hope this encouraged your hearts, guys. This is Josie. I love you guys. I really do. Until next time, we're gone.